Commissioner Bryant Nolden,
Present.
Crystal Alexander. Dr. Caravala is excused. Brenda Clack is excused. Dr. Lawrence Reynolds.
Present.
Stuart Sherry.
Present.
Commissioner Sean Shoemaker.
Present.
And Commissioner Winfrey is excused.
So we do not have a quorum to actually have the meeting, but what we're going to do, we're going to allow for public comment. So we can't make any decisions, but we can have public comment. So it's still going to be 2 minutes. So if you would like, you can line up to the right. You'll have 2 minutes to do your comments. State your name and city of residency, please.
Hello,
Hello?
Alicia Hensley, Davison, Michigan. I'm so happy you're here, Dr. Hacker, after emailing you for countless months here. A couple of things, key points that I want to talk about today. I was a little disturbed at some Facebook posts that I've recently been seeing today. It says Happy Hump Day, talking about using lubricant on Facebook by the Genesee County Health Department. I'm all for safe sex, promoting safe sex, but I just was like, geez, oh Pete, it's a little bit much. The second thing is I want to talk about the schools, and I know we don't have a mask mandate, so you're like, why are you still up here talking? I'm sick of listening to you, but we do still have a mask mandate for under 5 years old. We also have toolkits, charts that I just reviewed today that are causing administrators, school administrators just insane. Our assistant superintendent can't even do his job because he's too busy following the colored boxes and making thousands of phone calls a week. So the toolkits and charts are still making it impossible for educators to do their jobs. Our mask boxes actually clearly state that they do not prevent against COVID. The actual inserts from the testing kits that the schools are using state that positive results do not rule out bacterial infection or co-infection with other viruses. It says it's intended for use by medical professionals or trained operators. They're handing the test to the 5-year-olds, literally 5-year-olds. I've seen it. I've heard it from parents to do their own tests, including all other ages. So they're not even being used properly or done properly, and we are quarantining healthy children. So, I mean, are the boxes lying? Are these lying? Are the mask boxes lying that everything does work when it says it's not? So those were my main points today. I just wanted to educate you on the actual insert that's in there that says that it can indicate several other viruses. There's lists on here. And also that our educators are there to educate. And right now, I know in my own school district, they're not able to do that.
Thank you for your comments.
My name's Tabria Dunlap. I'm actually a Saginaw County resident. I live in Burt, but my kids go to school in Montrose. I have a 16-year-old autistic child who suffers with anxiety and severe sensory processing disorder. We've tried every mask known to man. We've bought them, we've made them, we've ordered them from Etsy. She can't wear one. She can wear one for about an hour, and that's it. So last year we were forced to do virtual, and it was awful. She's a really hard worker. Prior to COVID, she had a 4.0 for her whole life. Last year she did not. She doesn't learn well from video instruction without an actual teacher. She had to wait sometimes days to get answers to questions from school coordinators, which caused her to get behind on assignments. She became very frustrated and depressed last year. At one point, she said to me, "Mom, I think it would have been better if I just hadn't been born." Her doctor finally agreed to give her a mask waiver this year, so she was able to go back to in-person learning. The first month of school, she missed 5 days because of nausea. Going back into a public setting after being home for over a year was really hard on her nervous system. So now she's on medicine for stomach anxiety, she's on antidepressant to help with anxiety, and she's seeing a therapist once a week. I'm doing everything I can to help her. Last month, she was made to stay home because somebody else in her math class was sick. She was perfectly healthy, but she couldn't go to school. When kids are quarantined, they don't get the same equal education that kids in school are getting. They don't get class instruction, they don't get to participate in class discussion, and the option for her to ask questions in real time isn't there. It's really hard for kids to learn things like Shakespeare and Algebra 2 on their own. She was just left to fend for herself. Quarantining a healthy child who can't wear a mask because they have a disability or a medical condition like asthma or allergies or anxiety is blatant discrimination, and it needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carly Lamb, Clio, Genesee County. I'm speaking on behalf for Rochelle Nyhouse of what happened to her son based on a mask injury caused from hypoxia. Can you please pause my time when I get the...
Can't.
Lord, help him. They're getting you something, baby, okay? They're gonna get something. Hold the handle and squeeze it, okay? Squeeze the handle. You can bite your finger if you have to, or bite that thing or something.
This is what our parents are left to do for
I don't know what happened. I was just doing something.
You'll be able to speak next.
It's the Botox, I mean. Or you mean your head was feeling better
My head
and then it
was
got
like-
worse? And that got way worse after the...
I was like, it was like, I don't even know how to say it.
Like it got worse all of a sudden just now,
Yes,
or
just now,
since
like
home?
even worse. Like I don't want to be alive. Like 0%.
Oh, honey.
Like it's not bearable at all. Like I
They need to get you something right now.
Come on. No personal attacks, please. Thank you.
Please, I'm asking one of you to motion that Rochelle gets to tell her full story and not be timed for 2 minutes.
It's going to be 2 minutes. Next.
Can we make that, can I make a motion?
No, she can, they don't have to do just like they did this morning.
What's your name, sir?
Brian Nolden.
Because I'm part of this Genesee County community, and I'll be going right after your title.
Okay, thank you.
First.
Okay, thank you. First District,
First District.
yes.
This is about we the people. I represent my son right now. I'm from Clio, Michigan, and my name is Rochelle Nyhouse. And I'm here to speak to you on behalf today of my son that's at home right now in a black room without any windows with his head under a pillow because his head is ready to explode right now. I'm waiting till Tuesday. I'm counting down minutes right now and seconds till I can get to his appointment on Tuesday to get the inflammation out of it, like his brain drained right now. Thank you. March 5th last year, after the mandate was put on to all the students in Genesee County and all of the athletes, on February 8th last year, my son was at basketball practice on March 5th, and we were abiding by the rules that were put in place. And he was forced to practice for 2 hours wearing a mask. They had lost the basketball game the day before, and it's common practice that they come in and they run their asses off for 2 hours, and they run extra killers when they lose a game. So my son had to run for 2 hours and run his killers. At the end of that practice, he was holding himself up with the wall, bent over, could barely breathe, and had a severe migraine. He didn't have a choice to have somebody come pick him up because we weren't home, so he drove himself home and told my daughter when he got home that he needed to get some Motrin, that he had a severe migraine and he felt like he was going to puke. So he went into the bathroom. He stood over the toilet, he threw up, and he collapsed onto the floor. He didn't come out of the bathroom. My daughter noticed that he wasn't out, that he had a bad headache. She went in and found him unconscious on the floor and called me. I had to return from my other son's practice to come home to bring my son into McLaren Hospital for CAT scans and other testing. He had sudden hearing loss where his hearing was just dropped off at a certain decibel from running that high with lack of oxygen and too much carbon dioxide going into his body. He has hypoxia now where his brain is swollen so bad now that there is a condition called, what's that called when the blood can't go through his veins like it's supposed to because the veins are so swollen right now that it hurts for blood flow to come
That's your
through.
time, but she's going to give you 2 minutes.
My name is Landry Spewalk from Davidson, Michigan, and I give her my 2 minutes.
Wait, before you start. I wanted to give you the opportunity because this is what they did earlier, so that's why I'm following what was done at the
I
morning
know,
meeting.
it's just so broke up, and you
I
have
know,
the
I know,
choice to do,
I know,
you
but I
have the
wanna-
choice to
I wanna
override
be
it, but you
consistent.
chose not to, but that's okay.
I want to be
We'll
consistent.
vote.
All right.
We'll vote.
Excuse me?
I said
Did
then
you-
the rest of us can't speak if we're giving time.
Yeah,
When you
absolutely,
give her the time.
absolutely. If you give her your time.
Yeah. So, yeah, so, my son is now diagnosed with a hypoxic brain injury. He also was diagnosed with a condition called palatal myoclonus. It's a constant muscle spasm in the roof of his mouth, or above the roof of his mouth, in his eustachian tubes that clicks in his ear 24/7 from the time that it started, after he collapsed, until now. It's a condition that they gave me tranquilizers when they diagnosed him. They told me that your son will probably most likely become suicidal because most other people that have this condition do become suicidal. And I said, no way. So I started doing things with my son. We started traveling. We started doing things just to try to take his mind off it. My 4.0 student, who was up for scholarships for basketball and baseball both, my child's whole life, everything that he planned on doing, this sits on his nightstand at home because he wants to be an airline pilot. My son is now diagnosed with hearing loss, balance issues, he can barely walk without falling to the left, and a hypoxic brain injury. Do you know, Dr. Hackert, that they do not hire people into the aviation program with hearing issues, let alone a hypoxic brain injury or anything else? So when we're cutting off their oxygen, we're ruining the rest of their focused life. We're not just doing something right now that you think you're preventing things from happening, because my son was never sick. Now, 2 days ago, I get a call from my daughter at school that I have to come up there. The protocol that you wrote down, that toolkit that you say is not mandatory, but you've got it out there, that they still have to run in sports. So my daughter was exposed to somebody else who had COVID-19, who had the COVID-19 vaccination off the basketball team. The entire team was with her, so they were all exposed.
Hold that thought.
Debbie's off, Clio, Michigan, I give her my time.
So I was told when we didn't do the testing that they wanted her to test on days 1, 3, and 5, because that's what you say that we have to do, that she would have to stay home for 5 days, and when she returns to school, she has to wear her mask for 10 days. She doesn't only have to wear her mask in the classroom, because according to you and your thoughts on this, it's okay for students to run. It's safer for them to run with a mask on and prevent a spread of a virus that children are not being affected by, and cut off their oxygen supply so that every other organ in their body can be compromised, Mrs. Hackert. Now my son is cold all the time. My son has a tremor issue that he never had. My son has to pee all the time. Frequent urination, that's kidney failure. Well, he hasn't been diagnosed with kidney failure, but he never had urine issues before. He never had thyroid issues before. But since the brain is the first thing that's affected by the lack of oxygen and it powers the rest of the body, you can only imagine that many of the organs might just start to shut down once they don't have enough oxygen supply, and then too much carbon dioxide. So here we are, and you get to rethink everything, and you know. Now, this past weekend, it would have been a normal, great experience for my son. He got pulled out of school in his junior year in March last year. This is his senior year. He's a star basketball player. He's been on varsity been pulled up to varsity now since his freshman year. He was voted this weekend on Friday homecoming king, or snow coming king, which would have been a fantastic opportunity for him to be able to walk through that gym and just see all the support of his friends and peers around. But my son's head is pounding so bad, like you saw in that video, that he can't walk into a gymnasium with sound, bright lights, and anybody cheering his name. So I got to carry this ugly, stupid board with a picture that doesn't represent anything about my son.
Hold up, so they can give you 2 minutes. I want you to continue on.
My name is Emmett Spiewak from Davison, Michigan, and I give her my 2 minutes.
And they handed me, thank you, son, or thank you, honey. They handed me these flowers, which I would like to gift to you, Mrs. Hacker.
No, you can't approach. Ma'am, you cannot approach.
I'll leave them right here.
Thank you.
Because those mean absolutely nothing to me for my son, who has a brain that can't function, can't think, can't write, a 4.0 student who's getting college applications in the mail all the time, because it's his senior year and that's what everybody does. Chart your course. This is like torture when this shit comes in my mail because my son had his course charted. He has the 4.0 transcript. He worked his entire life and through his schoolwork hard for everything that he had achieved, and you took it away by putting a mask on him and making him run because you weren't thinking when the fine print was going on paper what it would actually do to somebody when they are running for 2 hours in a sports practice. You need to think what you're doing thoroughly through. And I hope when you go to bed at night and when you put the next mask on your face, I hope every single time you see my son, and I hope you hear him scream like I do. I'm going to just conclude with this poem I wrote since I still have a couple minutes left.
Okay. Come on, young man, and give it to her.
I'm Camden Gilner from Davison, and I give her my 2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, I guess I didn't make it through all of my things that I was going to show you either. So this is just one of my son's home run balls that he's got like 50 of them at home. And when he was going to play baseball someday, you know, he had his collection with his ring. We've got pictures of my daughter, who's now a freshman at Clio School, the one that got pulled out, and she's a starter on her varsity basketball team. And with your rules right now, every other girl that was exposed to this girl, you know, they're supposed to have masks on. So my entire, because they're going by your rules, my daughter's entire team would be masked running around right now. So right now, as it's laid out, she's gonna miss the last 3 or 4 basketball games, and she's perfectly healthy, but you put it in fine print. Okay, this is my 11-year-old son. Both my daughter and my son couldn't handle the mask when they first went to school. They had a headache by 4th hour. They said an extreme headache. They could not focus by 2nd hour. They just couldn't function in school enough to think. My kids have all 3 achieved straight A's, and you can't do that when you're actually breathing, or when you're not able to breathe. So my son, I had to take him out and put him in a private school in Frankenmuth, and we've been paying $450 a month so he can go get an education without having his face covered, because we were more willing to go out of district, and instead of, you know, I should have been up here dealing with you every month or every week, but I didn't. I wasn't aware. This is my son's tie. It's a piece of the suit that I bought him for snow coming that he was never able to take the tags off and wear. Another opportunity, you know, not to mention the Christmas parties, the family gatherings, and everything else that he has to sit out on because he can't function these days.
Your time is getting ready to end, so could you have her come up and give you your 2 minutes?
My name is Jacqueline Spiewak. I'm from Michigan, and I give her my 2 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, this is the poem that I wrote for you, for my son. I miss my number 35 with everything I have inside. You don't I want to stop here because you don't know what it's like to actually go sit in a varsity basketball game and watch my daughter play, and then when that game gets over, the varsity team comes out, the same varsity team that my son has played with his entire 12 years that he's been in, those boys that he grew up with, he can't be a part of now. So I have to watch my daughter play and watch them come out and then go home to my son who's stuck in a dark room, who should be doing that, who could have done somersaults down or cartwheels down that court before, and now he can barely take a jump without feeling like he's going to fall over because his brain was ruined from the mask. I miss my number 35 with everything I have inside. The last 10 months have been intense with so much pain that didn't make sense. He's suffered more pain than you'll ever know. So from the beginning, we've been go, go, go. We've been so busy trying to fix his pain that we've missed out on one really big thing. The answer that we've been looking for recently came knocking at our door. What happened to number 35, everyone asks, as his senior year and junior year are becoming a thing of the past. He still looks the same, so why isn't this athlete playing his favorite games, 2 of them? He's wanted to be with you all along and tries so hard to be strong, though his family sees that there's something terribly wrong. The pain he constantly has in his head leaves him most days in his bed. Along with the pain came a new diagnosis, something we've never heard of, called palatal myoclonus. And how does a healthy young athlete who's now in his prime start having blood pressure suddenly so high? 168 is not normal for a young child, but that's what masks do to them. The symptoms he has all make no sense, but we will fight until this all relents.
Hey, I'm sorry to
A
stop.
senior
I'm sorry to stop
athlete
you right
with
there.
all A's.
He's going to give you 2 minutes.
This is why we
Can you-
asked for the 15 minutes, so
Yeah,
you
well,
wouldn't have to
I
chop it up
cannot
like
do
this,
that.
but
I
you
have
made
to
that
follow.
choice.
I have to follow the
It's in the
rules.
bylaws.
It's in the bylaws. We know them. We're going to know them really well now.
Okay, thank you.
Mike Hamilton, Grand Blanc. I give my 2 minutes.
Thank you, sir. A senior athlete with all A's can't even take his SATs. Do you have a protocol for that in fine writing anywhere? Did you put anything for that for my son? I hope that you will. I hope you'll find him some way where he can take his SATs while he can barely breathe and while his head is pounding. His dreams were a future in aviation and to get a college education. But one day after basketball practice, he came home with a migraine and felt really nauseous. After he puked and collapsed to the floor, now he can't really go to school much more. He went from in-person to now online and doing some college courses online because he can't, and I write papers now. Thank you, I'm back in school. My boy who once could really jump really high now spends many days wanting to die. Let me tell you about that. The first time he decided that he wanted to die, that the pain was too much and he was begging my husband and I to just let him die. And I had to try to give him tranquilizers through his shaking pain and get the tranquilizer into him so he could calm down. And then I decided, why am I fighting this? He's in so much pain. He would be so much better off with God. Why am I fighting this? Because I want him here. And I resorted as a mother to praying for my son, praying that God would come and take him out of his misery and take him to heaven, and that not be selfish by wanting him here anymore because he goes through daily pain every single day. Would you like to come to my house and meet him, Dr. Hackert? He now spends many days wanting to die. His life has changed in the blink of an eye. There must be something we've been missing. Dear God, what has happened to my wonderful athlete? What if I told you to our disgrace that this doctor made him put a mask on his face? Should it really be cause for any alarm?
1 second.
Leonard Martin, Davison, Michigan, to the bully pulpit. This lady has my time.
Thank you. Now as parents, we often say that we wish we wouldn't have let him play when our county is enforcing in this crazy way. If we only knew the hell he would pay. This mask mandate during sports is so cruel, in school also. But you know we've been brainwashed to follow the rules. That's what happened with my kids. They're still brainwashed. They're still following your rules while nobody else is. I've got pictures of every child in our school sitting in the student section with their mask under their chin that you mandated. Don't wear your masks up, I'd always say, praying this would all just go away. I didn't know that just one time could suddenly make everything stop on a dime. The energetic son that I once knew now struggles daily, by the minute, to get through. He is so strong and makes us so proud. Now it's time to make our voices loud, and I am not going away. If you think that people come in with these issues and they just let them go away, I'm letting you know. We will get to know each other very well. I left my job here in the city of Flint in March when this happened with my son, and I haven't been able to return to it. And now my mission is to flip this place into back to how the Constitution was built. No more of this, people writing up things that they haven't practiced themselves. The next time you write up some rules that you want to enforce on children who don't have a voice, you put that mask on and you get to every athlete practice. Let me see you go through football practice. Let me see you go through hockey practice. If you can't do it, Dr. Hackert, you should not be putting in fine print. We will never stop fighting for him to get well, and the good Lord has been seeing him through. He's really the one who has made us renewed.
Hi, my name's Tina Conley. I'm from Burton. I'm going to give her my 2 minutes.
Now this isn't just for our family to know. To every athlete, I hope you will go and tell them that you're sorry and that you were wrong. To the dear parents of the young, please protect them like I wish I had done. Don't trust them in the hands of people who really do not have a clue. We've never been through this before, and we cannot do this anymore. I hope you will walk with me through this door. It only takes just one time before your child could be close to dying. I tell you now with all the love in my heart that masks send harm, and that's just a start. If you don't ask me, just ask the WHO. They will tell you the same thing too. Somehow our officials miss the concern, but it isn't you that feels my everyday burn. We pray often that our son's dreams will still come to pass, and we hope this story helps put an end to the mask. We can't let our children be hurt anymore because now we know something that we didn't before. Please stand in this fight with my 35 and help us keep other students alive. He loves the game and he wouldn't be gone if something wasn't terribly wrong. I hope the world learns from my son and prays with us for the damage undone. Hypoxia is a term that any doctor should know. Carbon dioxide causes the brain harm. Without enough oxygen readily supplied, your body cannot get enough air to survive. His myoclonus that we thought was so rare isn't at all for someone deprived of air. I give you the facts as clear as we know. Now you go do the math and then let everybody know. Thank you.
Very wicked what you have done, very wicked.
Brain's not functioning, I've got it all. So if you want to have a meeting sometime and we can sit down and actually go over some paperwork, I would love to do that with you.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Eden Spivak from Davison, Michigan, and I want to talk about the mask, how it's harder to understand people. It's harder to work. It's harder to play games or sports. That's why I want to fight for my freedom. My parents fight for my freedom. Holger and Lindsay Spivak. My dad works so hard keeping my house up high. My mom works so hard working for my freedom. So every single time I come here, I am going to fight for my freedom. Thank you.
Holger Spivak, Davison, Michigan. We just heard one case of one child that's affected. You want me to start over?
All right.
Holger Spivak, Davison, Michigan. We just heard one case from one child's affected. How many cases do we not know of? A lot. There's thousands, tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands or millions of children around the world that are affected by this mask mandate and the upcoming vaccine mandates that you're planning to do. We live in a free country. We have freedom of choice. And you, Dr. Hackert, you are responsible for what just happened. And all these other children that are affected, we know of, you're responsible for them because you gave that mandate. I hope you can live with that responsibility. I don't know if you received any perks for this from somebody else. I hope not. But you know what? You are responsible for this, and you need to be held accountable for that. Thank you.
Next person, please.
Chelsea Fisher, Grand Blanc. Now I know you guys like facts, so I've done some research, and from the National Institute of Health, there was a 17-study review done, and out of those 17 studies, they only found, out of the 17 studies done on COVID-19 masking and transmission, only 2 of those studies were done on children. Now, those studies weren't done in regards to COVID. It was done in regards to air pollution in Singapore and London. These studies were done on school-age children, ages 7 to 12. The one study was done in 5-minute increments, 5 minutes of rest, 5 minutes of mild exertion or running. The other study was done in 3 minutes of rest, 3 minutes of walking or running. The one study excluded any known cardiorespiratory conditions, any known medical conditions that may be induced by strenuous physical activity. They excluded people with a physical disability. They excluded people with an acute upper respiratory tract infection. The second study, and I quote from the study, as a precautionary measure, children with underlying respiratory conditions, cardiovascular problems, and claustrophobia were excluded from participating in the study. And in this study, children were encouraged to wear their face mask for the entire activity, but were made aware they could take their face mask off at any point if they found them uncomfortable, too hot, felt their breathing was restricted, or felt their face mask restricted their activity. Now, neither studies were done in a duration of a school day, 6.5 hours on average, nor were they including physical activity, meaning gym class or recess. This universal masking that you are trying to impose on schools is experimental, and it can have detrimental effects, as you know. This is harmful. It has not been proven safe one bit, and these are studies to prove it.
That is your time.
Yeah, there are studies to prove that.
April Delora Graham Blank Township, I'm giving her my time.
Thank you. Now, you guys want facts, and here are the facts. I sent this presentation to my school board in Grand Blanc, and they, barely read it. I don't understand. You were once the medical director for Oakland County. Why don't you go see your connections there and ask them why they're rescinding their mask mandates? Why are we still applying here in Genesee County? Number one, the schools don't even have to, they don't have the authority to mandate this by any means, under any law. And you are violating a lot of laws, especially Public Act 87, and I know that it isn't, to state funding, but these schools are taking funding in, exploiting our children, and making them wear masks. That's exploitation. I mean, the masking is harming our kids, and this poor boy from Clio, that is proof. How, you want people to die? Is that proof enough to attend a funeral because a mask has caused them to die? I would like you to, maybe I'll send you this presentation, and I'd hope you read it, because I have cited all the resources, all my research. Oh, and the other study said that the most complaints from the children were masks were too hot, they had difficulty breathing, and discomfort. And one more thing I want to add is there's another study that was done on N95s in adults with face masks and the cardiorespiratory response to physical activity. Now, this study was done on adults only, and it says in here that there's a pediatric paragraph, and I'll summarize it as children are still developing humans. They have underdeveloped brains, underdeveloped respiratory systems. When you put a mask on, that's lack of oxygen for they're developing. You are causing so much harm and risk to these children.
Okay, I think she's going to give you some additional time.
Okay, thank you.
Sandra Jobin, Burton, and I reserve my time.
And it says that children's respiratory systems are underdeveloped as compared to adults. Their work of breathing, which there's a lot of factors that go into that work of breathing. How much blood flow is considered, how much oxygen gets to the heart, gets pumped out to their brain, and so on and so forth. It's a very, what's the word? Some calculation. It's in depth. It's a very in-depth calculation that goes into it. So their work of breathing is much higher than adults, and their heart rates are, again, much higher because, it takes their entire diaphragm as children, because, again, they're underdeveloped, to breathe, to get oxygen in. And the only way humans can receive oxygen is through their air, through their nose and mouth, things you are covering in children. You are covering their only airway. This is so detrimental. And children have to work nearly 50% harder to breathe than adults. And anything covering their mouth and nose has a potential to increase their resistive work of breathing, meaning it is going to be very bad for them. Children alone, without a mask on, have a greater risk of respiratory failure than adults just because of their underdeveloped respiratory systems. Think about that when you're placing children under 5, let alone children under the age of 18 to wear a mask, let alone any person for that matter to wear a mask. It's wrong, and it's very harmful, and it's not been proven safe. So I'd like you to provide the entire county, every district, every parent, proof that you have that it says it's safe and effective for children to wear masks. We've not seen that proof. We have proof that it doesn't work and that it's not safe. You need to provide us proof so we can make decisions and direct the care of our children.
Thank you.
Tara Phillips, Linden, Michigan. I've emailed this board several times and have yet to get a response from you, Ms. Hackard. I'll go on with my speech. If masks work, why don't they work? If masks are causing far more harm in kids in many ways than COVID, then why are these mask mandates being made and why are our schools enforcing them? If the vaccinated don't need to quarantine when exposed, then why are they getting COVID? It doesn't take science to watch what is going on around you, just common sense. This is creating spreaders. If schools are testing kids because of your recommended guidelines, and this is done without parental consent, show me the law that was approved to allow this. If the toolkit is a recommendation, then why are schools saying their hands are tied? Just by touching your mask, placing it on your face, this should be a hazardous material. Where are our hazardous bins? Can we locate them in the buildings or in our schools? According to science, the little ones are in the category that are least likely to contact COVID. So why does K through 12 have their masks off at Linden schools, who repeatedly say they stand for choice, but the masks remain on our little ones? As of July 21st, 2021, the CDC announced that the gold standard test would be withdrawn as of December 31st because they couldn't tell the difference between COVID and the flu. Why are we allowing inflating number counts to determine our guidelines? If the FDA says it needs 75 years to release documents it relied on to license its COVID-19 vaccine, then it's clear to me no mandate laws should be decided for 75 years. We should be questioning what the CDC, the FDA, and our health director guidelines are using to make decisions for locking down our community.
Hold up.
Gwen James, Linden, Michigan. I give her my 2 minutes.
Okay, go ahead. Continue.
Thank you. That's what we the people do for each other. We stand by each other. Love to see it. We should be questioning what data the FDA, CDC, and our health director guidelines are using to make decisions for locking down our community if the documents aren't available for 75 years. If all this money can keep pouring in for COVID relief funds to our schools, businesses, and the government, then it never should be stopped pouring in to fix every single house in Flint with water issues. Thank you, sir, for keep on standing up for your community. You're a blessing to them. You, as an elected official, should be questioning that. This should have been and still should be on top priority throughout every Genesee County department. This water is affecting our future generation. The Constitution was written to protect us when our government has overreached. It's up to we the people to learn it, to peacefully stand up, to use it to protect us. We need to stop letting the media, our schools, our hospitals, and our government divide us in so many different ways. It's up to we the people to come together for the future of our world.
My name is Sherry. I'm from Davison, Michigan. I'd like to say that we're an aviation family. My husband was captain on a 747. He flew around the world his whole life doing mostly military flights. He currently does emergency medical flights and flies organs with organ teams. And my son is also a pilot who's currently out in Utah doing his final training to fly for SkyWest. What I want to talk about is the crime that has been committed against this family. This young man that had his heart set on going into aviation. It just absolutely breaks my heart what has been done to him. It's an atrocity. And what I want to say is this is not only a loss to this family, this is a loss to the aviation community, it's a loss to the world. I hate to even think of all the people that this man's career would have helped. I ask myself, I try to understand how someone like Dr. Hackett can have a doctorate and a law degree. All of us know people that can be so book smart and yet so ignorant. When it comes to life itself, when it comes to life decisions itself, how can you possibly be so ignorant to take this young man's oxygen away from him, his very breath of life? Only God is the one who takes away the breath of life and gives it. I've been in the birthing room. I'm a nurse. My whole life I have spent taking care of children and saving children's lives, okay? God is there in that delivery room. He gives the breath of life to that child when it's born. You have no right to take it away.
Hey, that's your time. Thank you. Hey, let's be careful with the personal attacks and the language that's used. Everybody can express themselves, but please, on the personal attacks. Yeah, we do have freedom of speech, but we don't have to have the language that's being used. Go ahead. Thank you.
April Snyder, Grand Blanc.
Thank you.
So I believe you had your meeting with the superintendents this morning, like you do most Wednesdays. I would love to know what you told them. I sit at our school board meetings and I listen to the superintendent and the board say that they have to do what the toolkits say because it's a requirement, because it's rules, acting like it's law. So I specifically asked at one meeting back in December, the 15th, I believe, if that was a recommendation because it was removed conveniently at the front of the toolkit. Was it for intimidation purposes, legal purposes? I don't really know. But it was gone, and I had heard those words from my superintendent and the school board. So I got clarification. At the meeting this past Monday, I played your recording for 40 seconds telling them that you had said it was a recommendation because they're hiding behind it. In the Detroit Free Press, it was announced supposedly that the requirement for indoor masking is rescinded, but they're calling on local school districts and health departments to, cannot read this, to fall to require masks for students. That's great, that's fantastic, but unless you get rid of those toolkits, you are giving the schools something to hide behind. It is impossible for them to keep track of the tracking, the quarantining, the testing. Let these kids go to school, let them breathe fresh air, get rid of the toolkits, stop making it hard for them, and stop giving them something to hide behind.
Thank you.
Lindsay Spiewak, Davison, Michigan. Dr. Hacker, it's great to see you. I've been coming to these meetings now for over, I think it's been half a year now, and this is my first time seeing you, so that's great. Xander Newhouse, I hope you remember that name. I know earlier in the commissioners' meeting, there was a picture somebody had of Sheriff Swanson from a meeting here at the county. One day masked, the very next day at a fundraiser dinner, unmasked, and when somebody in this audience asked him why one mask one day and not a mask the next day, and he said, my choice. And I bet Xander would have loved to have the choice to be unmasked that day at basketball practice. You know, we've been asking for months to remove the masks and the toolkits, all of it. We want it all gone. There's a child that's now been harmed in Genesee County specifically to the mask, one that we can, there's many. I mean, Alicia Hensley and I run the Unmasked Genesee County page, over 3,000 members, and we are bombarded by stories almost daily of testimonies from parents and teachers. I want to give you some statistics from the Michigan COVID website. Since February 2020, 12 kids ages 14 and under have died from COVID in Michigan. Now, according to our Genesee County Health Department, which I talked to someone today, none of those are from Genesee County. Now, more than double that number has died from pneumonia in that same time period, you guys. And we've been dealing with pneumonia for years, airborne illness again, and we've never masked for pneumonia. It's just insane to me. You know, I've been asking you guys for a while. I might need some extra time just calling for backup. So I've been asking you guys for a while to go into the schools and hear testimonies, but I'm actually going to bring you a testimony here from one of the vice principals at Davison Schools. She posted this on her Facebook, and it's a video. Let me play this video for you first. We might need some time. Here, let me see if I can pull
You might want
this
to wait
up.
till the new time starts.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You might want to wait till the new time starts. She's going to give you 2 minutes, and then you can play it. All right, go ahead.
Lara Africa from Linden, Genesee County, and I'm giving my 2 minutes to Lindsay.
Thank you. Here's the video.
Starting tomorrow, we don't have to wear masks anymore!
So the video is showing a classroom of little kids. The teacher just made the announcement, no masks are being worn. Can you hear their screams of absolute delight and joy to take that thing off their face? Now let me tell you what this vice principal from Davison School said. Is this video staged? Of course it is. However, I do know that my own daughter's response when I told her she didn't have to wear her mask anymore because our mandate had lifted was certainly not staged. She responded exactly like these children. She shrieked with excitement and screamed into her pillow. It brought me to tears because I had no idea how miserable she was wearing the dirty rag. She never complained. She complied. My heart bursts for these kids. They can finally show their smiles to their teachers and peers. Did you go into the schools? Did you truly seek to understand what was going on? I don't know if you really have. So I'm bringing the stories to you. I know Alicia Hensley has sent you guys almost daily, weekly emails about stories. We're asking the masks come off completely. I know we're still masking ages 5 and under here in Genesee County. The toolkits need to go. The schools feel like they have to follow them. Please, let's let education get back to educating. Thank you.
Elizabeth Armstrong, Linden, Michigan. My children have not been as affected in the schools. My college-age son was. He spent 6 years playing football to try to get a scholarship in college, and he did get a scholarship in college. And in February of 2020, he got COVID, and it destroyed his lungs. And so in order to play football, they said he has to wear a mask. His doctor said absolutely not. He cannot wear a mask. He cannot run and do these type of defensive and offensive plays with a mask on, face shield only. That was not allowed. And so my son, after working for 6 years for a scholarship, had to step back with a doctor's note from his dream. And I'm going to say this, but God. Because God delivered that child a job making more than most people in this room are making currently. Okay, so that now my son can pay for his education and go on to be what he set out to be, which is a lawyer advocate for children with no debt. Okay? I have 3 children that have speech impediments, such as apraxia. Okay? They could not be in school because I was not going to make their speech worse, especially my youngest. So I, out of my own pocket, have paid for him to receive, especially my youngest one, help with IV pediatrics in Fenton, okay, to get the proper speech. Because you cannot do speech while wearing a mask, all right? And God has provided that money as well, each and every time. So I'm going to leave you with Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And it does not matter what anyone in this room here has chosen to do, because but God. God is going to save her son.
Thank you for your comments.
Shame on all of you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, Meredith Davis, District 7. I wasn't going to speak today, but when I heard Xander's story, it brought me to tears twice now, and I don't know why we are still doing these charades. We first said that cloth masks were effective. You said that yourself, that they were effective in schools. Now we know that's wrong. We then had a rule here in this county that unvaccinated people had to wear a mask and vaccinated people didn't, and then we saw that was wrong. When are we going to find out that this is, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with this. We don't understand, but we do know that we can put faith over fear. Why do we keep doing this to our children? We don't know what we're doing, but mentally and physically, there are going to be some repercussions, and I just urge you to lift everything. The superintendents, when I talk to them, they are afraid. They are afraid to go against the toolkit, even though it's up to them, they are still afraid. I think that we just need to lift everything and get on with our lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sorry. My name is Jamie Gildner, and I'm from Davison. Didn't plan on coming up here, but I thought I'd throw out a few things. An emergency doesn't last 2 years, a war does. The tyrants don't create the tyranny, your obedience does. The closer the collapse of an empire, the crazier its laws. Resistance to tyranny comes with consequences, but so does submission, so choose your consequences. A warrior knows he could die going into battle. He just doesn't expect the arrows to be from their own government. The largest standing army on the planet is not controlled by the government. It is us, the people. We are waking up, and we're not going to let it go anymore. Not knowing the truth doesn't make you ignorant, but not wanting to know the truth does.
Thank you.
Tanya Prim, Richfield Township. Dr. Hacker, through the toolkits, is enforcing her agenda of masking, testing, quarantine, contact tracing, isolating, and vaccinating. Even though she's not using the mandates, she is still using coercion. The place this is going to go next is not good. People who are willing to let their children mask so they can go to school are also willing to get their kids a shot so that they don't have to miss more school, so that they don't have to mask if they've been exposed. All of those things that go together, all of those pieces that are attached to the tests and the masking and the vaccination and everything. So what happens if a parent decides, I'll just get the shot for my kid? It'll be fine, right? I mean, they've had other shots. No. Dr. Hacker, you're not protecting the children of Genesee County because this is not just another vaccination. The adverse events from this vaccination are hundreds or thousands of times more than those from other vaccines. Seizures, loss of consciousness, paralysis, multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children, appendicitis, myocarditis, new onset type 1 diabetes, acute immune thrombocytopenia. A child went to the hospital on Christmas Day with organ failure because of a vaccine she got a week before that. A child in Michigan, I can't remember which one was in Michigan, but we have actually higher rates for some reason, that would be something to look into, of adverse events. In fact, serious adverse events in Michigan are much higher than anywhere else in the nation.
Thank you for your comments.
Brenda Hanel, Vienna Township. October 21st, an elderly couple celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary. They were, to celebrate, the 86-year-old man who has been over and has had on and off confusion since 2017, some of it stroke-like symptoms, drove his wife an hour and a half to 2 hours away to the west side of the state to a resort, got out of the vehicle, went to step up into the building. His arms went out, started shaking. He fell backwards, hit his head. Believe it or not, very little bleeding with 8 milligrams of Coumadin that he has been on for AFib. They decided to stay the 2 days before his 81-year-old wife drove him home. He had lunch. She had to instruct him on how to eat a sandwich. Went to the urgent care. Urgent care sent him to the hospital because of low oxygen levels. Of course, they put him on the COVID floor where you cannot see him except through Zoom calls. They ruled out any injuries, bleeding, stroke, even though he sounded like it for the first week. He was on high flow oxygen, came off of that, stabilized. Then they said he had a partially collapsed lung. He ended up having another partially collapsed lung. Chest tube was given okay to be put in. His wife, at 4.5 weeks into his hospital stay, finally got to go see him for her end time visit. At 5 weeks, he died. The private autopsy came back. He had deep vein thrombosis from peripheral vascular diseases. The blood clots broke off and went to his lungs, causing the confusion, the lack of oxygen, causing his O2 stats to drop, and also the stroke-like symptoms. There was no trauma or scars on his chest, but yet they said they put a chest tube in. Thank you for listening to the last 5 weeks of my father's life.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Shannon Ellenboss, Fenton Township. Dear patient, effective immediately, all forms of child abuse will no longer be tolerated in my office. This includes masking children. Just as I would never tolerate a parent beating their child or burning him with a cigarette lighter in my presence, I will not condone or allow minors to enter my office with their faces covered. My first ethical responsibility as a physician is to do no harm to my patients, and allowing children to mask their faces has caused and continues to cause tremendous harm to them physically, emotionally, psychologically, and developmentally. Any argument to the contrary is naive and irrational. At my first public speaking event since the pandemic began, I announced in May 2020 at the Orange County School Board of Education meeting that we, the adults, have failed our children by allowing our own fears to drive and sustain the schools' closures. It was the biggest mistake we made in responding to the public health crisis provoked by the arrival of the Wuhan virus from China. I challenged parents to set aside their narcissistic paranoia over a minor respiratory infection that did not affect children and assert their responsibilities as adult guardians to demand that schools reopen immediately. I was profoundly disappointed by the largely apathetic and cowardly response shown by the vast majority of the local population. Nearly 2 years later, I am done. I will no longer accept your ill-informed, foolish, immature rationalizations for the ongoing abuse of your children. If you want me to treat your child, take the mask off his face or find another doctor who is as disturbed as you are, who prefers to cling to a fear fantasy over reality, who honors a truly sinister mandate than his ethical duties, and who chooses child abuse over the uncomfortable position of embarrassing his patients. You, parent, are not the victim, your child is. I have taken a stand. I invite you to as well. If we all do, this ends today. Dr. Mark McDonald, Los Angeles, California, clinical psychiatry and medical legal expert. I stand with this man. I have pulled my children from school.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Grosier from Search Creek. I won't review my story, Dr. Hackert. I've sent it to you 3 times. I haven't gotten any response, but long story short, my daughter was suicidal. She ended up leaving the Genesee early college program in her junior year. Admitted she was suicidal, had spent months in a dark room. We could hardly get her out. Anyways, counseling at the school and counseling outside of school admitted that this was a big problem they were having with so many kids, and we weren't alone. That doesn't comfort any parent to know that there's so many children. I don't understand why we're a one-size-fits-all throughout this entire almost 2 years now, where we're only concerned with, you know, the concerns of COVID, especially in children where they're vaguely affected. And we're not given any consideration for our kids who are having mental struggles and suicide, the suicide rates that are up, and I know all of you are aware of that. So you see the emotions high here today, and there's a lot of anger. We're asked to stay controlled. We're asked to stay calm. And yet we've been begging for months and months, and I just wonder, when it's your own child, what would you do when you see that your child needs something different than what's being demanded of them, and you know they can't fit into this one-size-fits-all category for whatever reason, psychological, physical, whatever it may be? We should not be any longer being held to this lack of standard from what I can see, from what all of us can see. By the way, there's many parents, apart from this group, that would be here if they could. We are a much larger number than what you're seeing.
Thank you.
Catherine Keller, Burton, Michigan. Dear complier, we've met, but you probably don't recognize me. You may remember referring to me as conspiracy theorist, racist, sexist, bigot, or even anti-vaxxer, but I, in fact, am none of the above. And I am much more to you than you realize. I am your friend, family member, colleague, lover, acquaintance, and neighbor. I am everywhere, but I don't self-righteously disclose where exactly. You're wearing a mask, so I can't see the scorn set on your lips, or even your smile if it's there. Your eyes are visible, but in them I only see compliance, fear, shame, defeat. I don't judge you. In fact, I feel sorry for you because I know you're a victim. You have been efficiently conditioned, the result of which has left you stripped bare of self-confidence, dignity, power, and compassion. Your only strength is to attack those unwilling to join you in your obedience. It's okay. I don't feel mad. I am sad for you. I will allow you to direct your fear at me, and I will accept it because the battle I am fighting in is for you as well as me. It's for your children and grandchildren as well as my own. You and I both had a choice to make, and I decided to fight for freedom, but you submitted instantly to shame, intimidation, and coercion to try to get me to do the same. You've become outraged at my independence and my belief in my body, my choice. You disagree with my striving for a fair and just society free from fraud and deception. You call me a fascist for arguing against government overreach. Do you see the irony? While you continue to angrily comply to follow those who have continuously lied to you, I will continue to push back. I will continue to value my autonomy, and I will use my strength to free us both from the path you are so blindly following. One day you will see how much your compliance almost cost us, and I hopefully
Thank you for your comment.
will know I am not your enemy, I am your friend.
Thank you for your comment.
Shame on you.
Thank you for your comments.
And you.
Thank you.
Todd Womack, Flint, Michigan. My aunt said to me a long time ago, she said, nephew, some people are going to say kitty kitty, and some people are going to say scat. I started off with just silence, because that's what we need in order for our leaders to make a decision. I'm not here to persuade you. Just find the morality and the courage to make a decision that's best for everyone. I'm from Flint. People that look like me would be here. They don't have the privilege to do so. So know this, there are more people who are not here who support you than who are here that oppose you. I'm a parent, have 3 sons, all play sports. Dad, I don't like this mask. They play soccer, they play basketball. Their leadership allows them what? To make the choice to wear the mask or not, even with the mandate. It doesn't force or handcuff me. It engages me to have a conversation with my sons. When you playing soccer player, when ain't nobody around you, take the mask off. Breathe in and out, and then put the mask back on. We still have choice amongst the mandate. I'm just asking that you do the best you can. Science is not perfect. It's not the absolute truth. It's the pursuit of it. And I trust you all collectively will do the best for all the residents in Genesee County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Arthur Woodson, Flint, Michigan. I don't even have enough time to address what Dr. Hackert you sent over here earlier this morning. You sent that bogus cancer incident report that Sarah Lyon Callan, Dr. Eden Wells, and CDC Dr. McFadden put together. They put it together because I asked for that report back in 2018. They came with bogus numbers. They mixed 48503 with 48532 because 503 was the highest. So they had to go back to the drawing board, and they would not give us that report until recently when they had to go back and redo it again, which took a year and a half for us to even get that, for Elizabeth to come and tell us about it. So when they came back, it was still bogus. And they base it on lead. We had TTHM, PFAS, PCBs, arsenic, cyanide, nickel, manganese, 1,4-dioxin. We had everything in our water. It's more than just lead. Dr. Marcus Zervo said that our cancer here in the city of Flint is more aggressive than anything he ever saw. You could be diagnosed with cancer in January and die, stage 4 in June. That's how cancer is here. And then on the other side of it, if you are diagnosed with one cancer, lung cancer, my aunt died with 5 different cancers. Colon cancer started out with. The doctor said they'd never seen colon cancer go to brain cancer. That's what they said. And if you diagnose with one, they only mark down 1 in that incident report, and then they leave the other 4 out. They didn't tell you about the waterborne cancers. Waterborne cancer, we just had 2 people die from throat cancer this week, that last week. And the sad part is throat cancer.
Hold up, Art. We'll give you 2 minutes.
I'm Paula Mauer from Flushing, and I'm giving my 2 minutes up.
Throat cancer, brain cancer, stomach cancer is a waterborne cancer carcinogen, I think, ain't it, Dr. Reynolds? PFAS, TTHM. It went up 81%, stomach cancer. It's in that report, but she didn't tell nobody this morning. Stomach cancer, brain cancer, throat cancer. Over on Ballinger Road, across the street from Bethel, I went door to door. I took it upon myself to go door to door. Multiple myeloma. I found 6 people on off of Ballinger, across from Bethel. 6 people with multiple myeloma. That's a rare cancer. How is it that 6 people in the same block have this cancer? And then when they in that report, they matched it up to a city exactly like Flint with the same type of environmental injustices. Why didn't they match it up with a city up north that didn't have GM, that didn't have contaminated water, that didn't have environmental injustices? Our rate is way over the state rate. Why won't you allow MDHHS and ATSDR, why don't you ask them to come in? Oh, matter of fact, I got an email from Vice President Harris' office. They told me in an email, and I will forward it to you, they got in touch with MDHHS. And MDHS told them that we didn't want them here. ATSDR, they did a registry down in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, military post.
Heather Keller, I give him my time.
Camp Lejeune from 1957 to 1985 had contaminated water with TTHM Marines. They did a registry with 200,000 veterans. TTHMs is what we had for 15 months, which supposed to be 154 pounds, 0.80 parts per billion, drinking 2 liters a day. That was supposed to be the advisory letter. Our TTHMs was 0.196, 0.208. That's how high ours was. Why do you all not want us to have a cancer cluster study? I'm not understanding that. Our kids are dying. Our people are dying here in the city of Flint of cancer at an unknown rate. And then we had COVID on top of that, so they was able to hide a lot of deaths from cancer. Why won't you ask for a cancer cluster study? What would be the problem? Vice President Harris, they office are willing to send ATSDR, which is Agency for Substance Toxic Disease Registry. They are willing to send them in here. Dr. Mona Atish, who turned on us, who testified for the state, who's over the registry, yes, her name is in it also. She won't even ask for it. Dr. Mona Atish, who testified for Dr. Eden Wells, Dr. Mark Edwards, who testified for the state for Nick Lyons and Eden Wells. See, that's what happens with public officials and people in position. They start selling the people out. They start falling in line. You fight with us for a second until you get what you need, your position, your money, and then all of a sudden, we the people don't matter.
Sandy Glish, Davison, I give him my 2 minutes.
We the people don't matter after that. I'm gonna wrap it up after these 2 minutes. I'm sorry.
No, don't be.
But it's something that I've been fighting for a while now. My cousin passed away. I went over to Zion, Illinois. That's where she was at a cancer treatment center over there. My cousin, 36 years old. And the sad part, she looked at me and said, "I'm too young to die." She had 3 different cancers. It's water. My aunt, I took her from Flint to Indianapolis every 2 weeks. BB, you know I did that. Every 2 weeks for chemotherapy, I took her down to Indianapolis so that she wouldn't have to use this water. The doctor told her she had 18 months to live. She died within 2 months of that time. That doctor said that she'd never seen a cancer like this before. That was down in Indianapolis. Flint has serious issues with cancer dealing with this water. And all I ask is that we do a cancer cluster study so that we can get the right treatment, the right researchers, so that we can get it ahead of time, get in front of it. Because they couldn't even figure out the chemotherapy to give her. They had to try to make up a dose of chemotherapy to give her because they didn't know what to do. That's all I'm asking for a cancer cluster study for, because the kids behind us, they're gonna have cancer issues too. So why not get in front of it now while we have the time to do what it is that we need to do as far as dealing with this cancer? Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments twice. Public comments 3 times. Moving on to commissioners. Commissioner Sherry, do you have anything?
Yeah, just a few comments. And Commissioner Nolden, thank you for allowing the public comments.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I've been on that side of things. I think it's very useful to have that conversation. I know it's quite one-sided, and today there's obviously very raw discussion and feelings, but I think it's important people feel that their voice is heard. Some interesting things I heard today are things about, for example, cancer in Flint, masks harming children. And it really, to me, goes back to stuff we've talked about from the beginning. And it's interesting, we heard from a gentleman, let our leaders make decisions. I mean, I look at it and say, I don't want to do that. We have too much evidence that those decisions are not always right, that they end up with harm. They're short-sighted. I've often wondered, and you look at history, how do people start marginalizing other groups? You look at the internment of Japanese in the United States, and I think we all like to believe we would never have participated in those kind of things. And there's lots of examples in history. And I would just say that in my life, the past two and a half years with COVID, it's like I start to understand, because people on the other side of my opinion really believe what they're doing is for some sort of greater good. I think it's easier maybe for that side to see it because it's something a little more tangible. I can see that, or test this person has this disease and I need to prevent that disease and I need to prevent it in this way. The things that are intangible are things like we've heard about for 2 years: mental illness, oxygen deprivation, all these things that are causing serious consequences that are not immediate and tangible. And I guess I understand a bit why the other side says I still think we need to do things like masks and testing and isolation and keep people separated, because you think it's better than the alternative. But I just wonder, how long does it take and how many more people need to stand up and say, my kid is suffering or my kid is suicidal? I mean, I've shared with you personally, my own children, I put them in counseling. I put them in private school and sacrificed all. I mean, it was rough. I didn't want to end up with, and I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't want to be one of these people that, their kid did commit suicide, or we all don't want to be that parent. And these things are real, though, is kind of my point. And I understand it's not like I can measure that tomorrow and say I have this many cases and it's cases per 100,000 and I'm reducing the number and this is doing this effectiveness. I get that, but it's still real. It's still dangerous, still harming people. And I just feel like that is lost in this mess of mandates and toolkits and, numbers and all this. It's like we've said, go to the schools. This is one of the biggest areas. Go, see, talk, feel. And I totally concur with what everyone says. Superintendents will not tell you the truth on your weekly meeting or whatever you have it. When I was actively involved in the school board, they told me that. They will not. They're too afraid. Thank you, that's it.
Okay. Commissioner Shoemaker?
To the chair, I want to say thank you for allowing the meeting to go on. I think we need to have a talk with a few more board members to understand whether they're really committed to this or not. But thank you, Dr. Hacker, for being here. I wish we had a full meeting actually to go through, but I want to thank the people for showing up. I think it's important you're involved. The thing that I've learned from this is we only tend to see things from our side. We only tend to see things from what we want to see or what we want to believe. And I've said this before, we are so fractured as a nation right now that I don't know if we ever get back to normal of what it is to work together with each other and be together with each other. But I will tell you this today. I saw something very beautiful with this group. I saw time being given to other people that normally don't associate with each other or maybe not be around each other in a social, economical system, and they will work together for a better society so somebody could communicate with the other. And I think that's wonderful, and we need more of that, and I pray you keep it and continue it up. So thank you.
Okay. Dr. Reynolds? You have anything?
I appreciate hearing the comments of members of the public, but we are in a house that is on fire, and that fire is caused by the virus that causes COVID-19.
Come on, guys. You know what? We gave y'all respect. Can you respect him too?
And I respectfully insist that what we're doing right now is arguing with firefighters while there are people in the house that they're trying to get out. And until we get out of this fire, other things are secondary.
All right, thank you. And one of the things that I wanted to do and make sure that I did is give everybody an opportunity to be able to speak. And with Chairman Clemens actually allowing the folks to give the people their time, I wanted to make sure that I was fair and equitable in doing that as well too, because to be perfectly honest, when they said it wasn't a quorum and we opened up the meeting, we could have just ended the meeting, but I did not want to do that. I wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity to be able to speak. Okay, at this time, either Kaylee or Dr. Hacker, do you want to have a few words or before we end? It's left up to you guys.
I do not. No.
Okay, well, we are adjourned. Come on out the back door.